Who's in just UX, and this is Absurd Historical Trends That Need to Come Back by channel BlueJay. You guys know the BlueJay video? I always love this. This is closest to Salmonella, I think. Now, I think he's his own thing now. He's so good. While people often think the fads of today are as ridiculous as they come, history has had its fair square of trendy hiccups to give the weirdest styles. That's the thing, isn't it, about the styles? I mean, every time we see anything old one, it's just most of the times. Whenever we see something old, like what the fuck, what the hell were they thinking? But same way, I think 20, 30 years from now, people are gonna be like, what the hell were they thinking? So it's just the time, right? We get accustomed to a time in a way, right? How we see things in a way that it feels normal to us compared to anything else. Vsauce made a great video about something similar, like how our brain process or something, right? Which was awesome. So how people looked old back in the time, things like that. So it's like how if you see like say something green color, right? If your room is lit with green light and you see nothing but just green light and suddenly go outside in the sunlight, the light would look different because your eyes would need time to adjust it. That's how our brain is. Our brain gets used to certain things. So yeah, it's gonna be this video is gonna be awesome. Let's watch it.
Of the most powerful and seductive shapers of culture, the temptress that is fashion easily ranks amongst the top tier. We've all been bitten by this bug. It's the first day of 4th grade and you're strutting your way down the hallway, all eyes drawn to your new SpongeBob Heelys. But your undeveloped brain forgets that wheels on shoes equals no stick to floor, and one wrong step sends you plummeting, showering the hallway in colored pencils, Yu-Gi-Oh cards, and shame. We've all been there. Right? Well, people all
right, I saw a video on SNL that talked about wheels on shoe, and I had no. Are there really shoes that had wheels on it? Why the fuck would you do that? Aren't there roller skates by then? What the fuck is happening? Why you have wheels on shoes?
Often reminisce about the dapper fashion of the good old days. They usually aren't referring to the more ridiculous or outright baffling trends that have existed. So get comfy and buckle up your Supreme seatbelts, because on today's field trip, we're touring the world of absurd trends, styles, and fashion throughout history. And there were a lot of these, so if you want a part 2, make sure to let me know in the comments. Hobbling is the act of strapping together an animal's legs to prevent them from moving too quickly. This practice proved useful throughout history for preventing your horses, donkeys, or women from running away. Introducing the Hobble Skirt, a dress designed to obstruct a woman's stride with its tight-fitting hem, perfect for all your duck-waddling appreciation parties. Credit for the skirt was claimed by French designer Paul Poiret, whose design quickly replaced the corset as the staple of high fashion in 1908, leading him to state, "Yes, I freed the bust, but I shackled the legs." It's not entirely clear where Paul allegedly came up with the design. Some say it may have originated from the first woman to fly in an airplane, who tied a rope around her skirt to prevent it from blowing up in the wind. But I have a different theory. Perfection. Obviously, the trend came with certain mobility-related complications, such as crossing a street, or going upstairs, or just, living alone.
You know what I think? Before that time, dresses used to, were much bigger in the lower part of the body at the legs, right? So people couldn't see what's underneath that, right? So he says, like, what if we make something that looks like tied up at the below? You could see the figure perfectly or something. I think that's what his thought was. I don't know. Or maybe, like he said, tie them up so they couldn't run away or whatever the shit is. Because let's be honest, history is really fucked up to women.
Life. Things like boarding streetcars became especially difficult. So I guess they're just gonna have to wear something else for daily transit. Oh, or you could just have the city design modified streetcars specifically for hobble skirts. But as everyone knows, you're not a great trend until you've had your fair share of untimely deaths. One woman drowned falling off a bridge in New York, while another was killed trying to outrun a loose horse at a racetrack in Paris. But don't worry, the onset of World War I saw the decline of the speed limit skirt, with its impractical design not really suiting a wartime atmosphere. Thanks, World War I. You really saved a lot of lives. When you hear the word hermit, many often think of the adorable little crustaceans occasionally found as pets. Others, a sweaty neckbeard grinding for RuneScape XP in his mom's basement. However, a true hermit has more in common with the latter, opting for a life of isolation, where instead of grinding for XP, they grind for spiritual enlightenment. These secluded eccentrics often lived lives of peace and meditation, contemplating the meaning of life. And so naturally, British aristocrats thought they make perfect garden gnomes. Good morning, friendly travelers, and what a wonderful morning it is. Perfect for embodying the spirit of the youthful rabbit, frolicking in God's greatest gift.
Oh, look, George, we simply must have one in the garden.
Oh, thank you, but
Damn it, Martha, you're right. It fit in perfect next to the tulips.
Forget the elaborate hedges and neatly trimmed lawns. In 18th century Britain, your estate wasn't worth mentioning unless you had yourself an ornamental hermit. Basically, you'd build a simple brick or stone building called a hermitage and pay some guy to live in it, decorating it with tree root shells and bones in what was pretty much the 18th century equivalent of your lovable crackhead dumpster dweller.
Okay, so he doesn't have to be a hermit, is that it? Because the people who are actually hermit, who basically, like he said, given up life, social life, in order for, spiritual enlightenment, whatever, why the fuck would they agree to that, right? Because money wouldn't be the issue for them. So I'm guessing anybody who would live there is just like, look at that, he's a hermit in my... I mean, people with money, they run out of idea pretty fast, like what to do with this money, what makes my thing different than the other, and shit like that. You see that all the time.
Exchange for lodging, food, and a stipend, they were expected to spend their days in isolation, where they wouldn't bathe, cut their hair, or engage in any kind of recreation or social mingling. They served as entertainment for guests walking through the estate, where they could approach the hermit and pick up a little nugget of wisdom. Invest in Dogecoin, you should. $1 soon it shall be. I don't understand. He's reached a level of enlightenment we could never hope to achieve, Catherine. Kanye 2024. Wow, such wisdom. But finding a real hermit wasn't as easy as it is today, where all it takes is pulling up Pokemon's Twitch chat. So some estates had to post advertisements for the position. Turns out, asking a man to dedicate their life to social exile solely for the entertainment of the British elite is rather difficult, leading a few estates to actually use mechanical dummies instead. So if you were updating your resume hoping for a job as an aristocrat's quirky little poverty exhibit, think again, because not even that job is safe from being replaced by automation. This trend fell out of style by the 19th century, but if you're hoping to visit a hermit, you're still in luck. There's a hermitage in the mountains of Austria that's been continuously inhabited for the past 350 years. Or if that's too far, you just go to Portland.
Do you know what's the future?
Yeah, I bet in Victorian times, I'm pretty sure there are way much trends like that exist. He should definitely make second, third, or even fourth video, because I'm pretty sure he can make all those videos. This hermit thing, I'm pretty sure that's just like scratching the surface.
The American song Yankee Doodle has been sung for hundreds of years and is nearly famous enough to replace the US national anthem, Toxic by Britney Spears. But it turns out the famous lyric about macaroni isn't actually talking about those delightful curvy carb tubes, but a ridiculous 18th century British fashion by the same name, characterized by their outlandishly large wigs, vibrant colors, pointy shoes, unnecessary canes, and tiny hats. This eccentric fashion had 18th century Britain looking like if Rockstar made Grand Theft Carriage Aristocrat City. The fashion originated from young men who went gallivanting around Europe on the Grand Tour, essentially the Georgian era equivalent of your typical rich kid gap year abroad for finding themselves. Just like all college-age
Yeah, if anybody's that flamboyant anymore, right, that shows that much, like that big of wig, that everything big, people like, he must have a nano penis or something.
And they developed a passion for macaroni while passing through Italy, using the word for its cultural sound to describe anything sophisticated or worldly, such as their new drip. Oh my gosh, James, you look like a whole new man. What do you call this? Oh, this? Just a little thing we picked up passing through good old Italia. I call it macaroni. So ethnic. But while the ultra elite enjoyed how this expensive, over-the-top fashion distinguished themselves from those yucky poor people, macaronis soon began to fall out of favor. Given their exaggerated and often flamboyant appearance, the term began to refer to excessive fashion and male femininity, which at the time was rather frowned upon. Trust me, they
At the time, saying male femininity is just like the worst thing you can say to a man, I guess. It's even the times like this, there is something that's just too much, and apparently that's the case. So people just like start to become more and more, dress more and more, until at that point it's like, okay, no, that's it, cut back.
To be colonized. Whether or not macaroni was ridiculed because it suggested homosexuality is unclear, but regardless, mocking the trend became another popular British pastime, right up there with playing cricket and selling opium. After a lot of heat from magazines and cartoonists, the fashion fell out of style after only a decade. But don't worry, the rich will find other quirky ways to express themselves. When you think of history's manliest sex symbols, there are probably quite a few individuals who come to mind. No, not me, stop it. King Henry VIII, especially in his youth, could be considered one such individual, and he wasn't really subtle about it. To highlight his fertility, Henry VIII was particularly fond of wearing a codpiece, a type of flap or pouch protruding from a man's trousers, kind of like a genital birdhouse. While he didn't start the fashion trend that became popular during the 15th century, he certainly embraced it with open arms. Or I guess legs. So much so that you'd be hard-pressed to find a portrait of him without it. His armor is on display at the Tower of London, sporting a whopping 2.5-pound codpiece, which was sure to make him look quite submissive and breedable on the battlefield. Apparently, others thought so too, seeing as how women used to stick pins in its leather lining in hopes of increasing their chances of getting pregnant. Because you know, nothing quite screams healthy family like the dude who beheaded 2 of his 6 wives. His codpiece was so iconic that there used to be a wooden statue of him also at the Tower of London, equipped with a secret mechanism. To activate it, one only needed to step on the right spot on the floor. Hey, where's the codpiece? That's kind of his shtick. Check this out. You've done it again, Tom. The fashion blossomed in Europe until the 16th century, coming in many shapes and sizes.
Alright, I'm not gonna lie, this thing kind of surprises me, right? Because in 15th, 16th century especially, because this feels like more of a today's thing than anything, right? Because especially in the Christian countries, right, how it was frowned upon. If you see any clothing of the back time, right, it usually hides everything about you. You can't even see a person's figure, let alone anything else. And yet this thing exists like, oh, look at that, look at my big thing right there. This feels like weird thing, right? I mean, I don't know how people saw that. I guess only the big, like really rich or kings can do that because they're better than everybody or some shit like that. I don't know. But this still feels weird. Like how was this from 15th and 16th century?
Each time you think it couldn't get crazier, Google Images steps in to prove you wrong. I'm particularly fond of the German codpieces. I don't know what they were going for with this one, but to me it looks like a weird Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone.
Okay. Is that Bismarck or something?
Fan fiction. You know, the one where Voldemort attaches himself to Professor Quirrell's other head, Avada Kedavra. So while it may seem like the fads of today are as stupid as they come, clearly history has had its fair share of trendy hiccups to hopefully give you a little more faith in humanity. Or not. As you look back at what was in vogue in centuries past, it makes you wonder and perhaps excited to see what may become stylish in our lifetimes. Not me, though. Fashion has already failed me on that fateful day many moons ago. 4th grade was a long time ago, BlueJay. You need to let go. I can still hear them. The laughs. Oh god, they just get louder. And remember what we say to them when we hear the voices? BlueJay? Beauty is pain. Louder. Beauty is pain. You're ready. So from hobbits in your garden to towers on your noggin, I think it's safe to say weird historical fashion gets 6 out of 11 out of 10 stars.
Alright, I think, there are way too many of them than just this. Obviously, he should make a second video. But one thing I know of, I think it was in China or was it everywhere? I don't know. But there was a tradition of something that, girls when they go into teenagers or something, or was it before that? I don't know. They break their toes or something. Was it for ballet or some kind of a dance thing? I don't know. But they break their toes and bind them. Was it called binding or whatever? Right? That's so fucked up, right? Literally mutilating feet of girls like that just for some art thing. I'm pretty sure it was called binding or something. I remember that because I saw that somewhere. I don't know where it was. And there's so many instances like that. Hell, even in today, women wearing heels, right? Their toes are always fucked up because of it. But they get used to it so much, so people don't think about it that much. But their toes are always weird way pushed. The way the heels are made, the smaller toes are always screwed somehow. And people have real damage when they get older. So that's something, but yeah. Right, people, absurd historical trends that needs to come back by the BlueJay. I hope he makes the second part. This was great. If you like my reaction, don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.